going to do a quick intro to May's reading vlog. It is the 10th of May and I'm only just now getting started. Part of that is because I'm doing a challenge this month that is give a book another chance. So these are all books that I've started and read a certain amount of. The last couple days I've spent getting re-caught up on the 2 audiobooks I'm reading this month. The first is The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. I'd listened to about the first 30% and I got back up to that. The other one is Patient Zero by Jonathan Mayberry. That one I had listened to most of about 2 years ago, and so I have listened back up to about the 60% mark now instead of the 80% mark. And so moving forward for the rest of the vlog, it'll just be me finishing up those 2 books and then reading this one beginning to end. This is an alternate history book about what would have happened if they had got the atomic bomb ready to go before Germany had surrendered during World War II. As you've seen with a lot of my historical fiction, World War II, while overdone, is still one of my favorite historical fiction time periods. And so I'm excited to see that. This book follows the American scientists and other scientists who were collaborating on the Manhattan Project, who were working together to create the first atom bomb. I only got this far in it. I finished it's called basically the first part of the book, so I'm going to start from scratch because I really don't remember much. And I'm excited to kind of talk to you guys about the books. The other 2, I know I didn't really give summaries, but as I'm going to be finishing those up pretty quick, I will give you guys kind of a full summary once I finish, and I'll give you guys updates and a better summary as I go through this because I really don't remember that much. And with that, I'll leave you guys here and I'll see you in the next clip. Peace. Hey guys, Nikki here. I'm checking in with you for my May reading vlog, which, if I'll be honest, is going very poorly. The reading has been iffy. I've been in a bit of a slump the last few weeks. We've just had a lot more things happening in our lives right now. My husband and I have purchased our first home. We'll be moving there in about a month. And so we've been busy getting all of that paperwork sorted out, so I haven't had as much time to read as I would have liked. That being said, I still have done some reading. Thankfully, this month was trying books for a second time, and I picked 2 audiobooks that I hadn't finished. One was Patient Zero by Jonathan Mayberry, and that one was science fiction, zombie apocalypse style. And I had started reading it shockingly like 3 years ago on flights to and from Mexico when my husband and I took a tropical vacation, and I just never finished it. That I have finished since I talked to you guys last about a week ago. And so it ended the way I thought. Like, it is so like macho, manly. Look how good of a guy I am. I'm good at everything. I never hesitate, but I give you 5-minute monologue, internal monologues where no time has actually passed in real life. Okay, bro. Weird flex, but I gotcha. Overall, the characters weren't like that terrible. They were a lot of fun to follow. The story didn't have like tons of substance. It read like an action movie would watch. So it was a lot of fun. It just wasn't amazing. I don't have a real rating for it at this point. I am still kind of mulling a few things over, and some of the dialogue in there was so cringy. I'm trying to figure out like what I want to do with that. I have a fun idea that might come out in July after we move, so stay posted for that. I'll get my husband to join us again. And then the other books, just as a refresher, were The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. I've listened to a pretty substantial chunk of that so far as well. I listened to the first about 20%, and then I hit a huge reading slump, and I put almost everything down except a few old reliable reads. And as a result, I was left feeling very strange about the book. Like, I definitely wanted to pick it up again. I've read a lot of N.K. Jemisin's work that I loved. A lot. The N.K. Jemisin's work that I have read, I've loved. Let's not get presumptuous here. But I picked it up. I re-listened up to where I had read to previously. And after I filmed the first vlog clip, I listened to a bunch more of it, and I'm now, instead of 20%, I think about 60% of the way through. So I'm going to be listening to it on my week off here to try to power through that. And then the other book I have is a physical one. I have it sitting just off camera here, and I don't really want to get up to get it. And that is The Berlin Project by Gregory Bedford, I believe is the author's name. It's alternate history about if we had gotten the nuclear bomb ready to go before Germany had surrendered. And kind of, it's speculative fiction in regards to what would have happened if we dropped it in Germany instead of in Japan. So I'm excited to pick everything up. We'll see how it goes. I might not actually finish all the books in this challenge, which is fine. They were all very long. And I've just, like I said, I've had a reading slump. We've been getting all the paperwork in order for moving, so it's been a rough couple of reading weeks. With that, I will leave you guys here, and I'll check in with you again once I hopefully finish The City We Became and pick up The Berlin Project. Peace. As I mentioned last time, it's been going iffy. I just got into a huge slump, and it's been rough getting started again. Since I talked to you last, I did finish The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin, and oh boy, did I love that book. It really puts it into perspective for me that the first time I picked it up, I just wasn't in the mood for it, because it was so good. And I'm so pumped to continue with the series, because there's no way they're leaving it. She's just going to leave it at the one book. Again, as with my other book, I'll give you a star rating at the end when I do my wrap up. However, I have started reading the third book for my challenge, which was Project Berlin. I picked it up a little bit yesterday, and I've done a big chunk of reading this morning, and I have about 150 pages left, and holy dang, I picked a bunch of big books. I have no idea why I thought that was a good idea. Like, Project Berlin is like 500 pages. Like, not huge, but big enough I should have rethought that for this vlog. I'm really enjoying the Project Berlin book so far. I really enjoy alternate history. My big concern, the thing that would get me to hesitate from recommending it to a lot of people, is that there's a lot of science in it. Like, it's very, very dense, because even though they've done a really good job, like, presenting a lot of stuff in layman's terms, it's just a lot of science, and not a lot of action. I just actually got to the action-y part, and I'm on page like 350. And it's like, I'm finding it incredibly interesting, but I also love books that have a really big science bend to them, so it may not be for everybody. This story, I think I mentioned before, is about if the atomic bombs that they had dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki had been ready pre-victory in Europe. And so that's what this book is exploring, what could have happened had they been able to drop the bomb on Berlin to try to get to Hitler directly. Like I said, it was super interesting so far, especially since I have such an interest in World War II history. It's been really interesting seeing a lot of these things play out, but that's about it. I'm going to be a bit busy for the rest of the day, so I don't know how much more reading I'm going to get done today, unfortunately, but I'm hoping to wrap up tomorrow, and then I'll be able to post this the next day. So I'll see you guys in the next clip. Peace. Hey guys, I opted out of just doing a check-in for the final book, and just go right into my wrap-up. I'll do my check-in here. And basically, what it boils down to is I did finish this Berlin project in time. The very final day before I'm supposed to post this entire vlog. I don't know, man. I've just been struggling with some of the books I've been reading. So this was pretty good. Like I had mentioned in the previous post, it is pretty physics and like chemistry dense. I personally really enjoy that, but if you don't have a lot of background, I don't know how much you would enjoy that from the same perspective. It was interesting the way things played out, and nothing felt too unrealistic. It was basically a specific timeline was moved forward that allowed for a different timeline at the end of the war. That's all I really got for you there. Now I'll go back and I'll summarize the first two books, and then I'll give the ratings for them and do kind of a final summary and rating for this one as well. And I'll start with this one. So The Berlin Project was an alternate history book that touched on if the Manhattan Project timeline had been moved forward and A-bombs were available prior to the surrender of Germany. It was really interesting just in how the science behind it, and then they touched a little bit on the strategy as well as in terms of the logistics of carrying the bomb, where they would go, what kind of planes they would be on. And some of this was altered because the timeline was moved forward, so other current technologies hadn't quite caught up. Because I believe that the bombs were dropped off of B-29s, and those weren't available until after the supposed first drop of the bomb occurred in this book. So they retrofitted different planes. It's very interesting. If you've always kind of had that question, like, what if with the Manhattan Project and some of the delays they ran into, and how that would have changed things. The very, very end, I believe, is a little bit more idealized than it probably would have been. Though largely the end of the war came about very similarly, not a lot had changed. I think that it was more like 15 years in the future. That's where I felt like this was kind of a little bit more idealized than anticipated. Like I said, very well written, very thorough. I think on the back it said that the author of this book is the son-in-law of the main character, Carl Cohen, who was one of the scientists who was working with the Manhattan Project. Through there, I think he gained a lot of really interesting insight into what was going on kind of as the Manhattan Project was being created and how all of the different talents were kind of coalescing into the think tank that produced the A-bomb. Overall, very good book, very intriguing. Like I said, it was very dense, very science heavy, so if you're not a huge science buff, this might be a bit harder of a read. And to me, how much I enjoyed this book, I'm giving it a 3.5 out of 5. Tells me that when I first picked this book up and had only gotten about 30 pages in, that I was just in the wrong place to read it. Reading it again, and I guess being in a frame of mind to better be prepared for this kind of book, I definitely felt my enjoyment level increase astronomically compared to my first read through. And that'll actually happen with the next book I'm going to talk about, which is The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. It's the idea that all great cities reach a certain point where they are birthed and mature and they have a human avatar. It's a very, very interesting premise. And the city that you're in is New York. And so there's involvement with the boroughs and kind of what they represent and the people who are the avatars for the boroughs and how they are and how they embody what their borough is. It was incredibly interesting. And going back and listening to it again from the beginning, I'm astonished that I was struggling with it, because it was easily my most favorite read of this vlog. I'm giving it a 4.5 out of 5. It was just, although it didn't necessarily have the sense of whimsy that I typically really enjoy in fantasy, it had some really, really wonderful characters, some really beautiful interpersonal relationships, and the concept that N.K. Jemisin created was just absolutely mind-boggling in scale and scope, and I think it's going to be a very vibrant world when going back into it. I believe this is the first book in this series and that there is more to come. If nothing else, the ending of the first book leads me to believe this. The book itself, you follow multiple perspectives because you follow the different perspectives of the people in the borough, the people who represent the boroughs, and it's just so well written. I really need to get on reading more of N.K. Jemisin's work. Everything I've read has just been so thorough and wonderful and interesting, and I need to get on it. So of the 3 books that I read, I would highly recommend that one the most, especially if you like more the lower urban fantasy. It really just was so well written. I can't recommend it enough for people who have those tastes. Now I'll move on to my final book. It is the one I would say I enjoyed the least, and it's not to say that I didn't enjoy it, because I did enjoy it quite a bit. It's just that my enjoyment of it was different. It was like watching an action movie in book form, which is to say I really enjoyed it, but the story wasn't anything special. It didn't engage me. I was there for the action and the crazy mad scientist, because the mad scientist in this book, just the way the mad scientist was written was just like touched a place in me that I just really enjoyed. It wasn't necessarily like they were a sympathetic villain. They were kind of like evil for evil's sake, but also with like a very specific motive. It was just very interesting to read that aspect of it. However, the main character is also like your typical action hero. He's the not like any other guy, nice guy. It's not to say that he wasn't a nice guy. He was a very nice guy. He was just also one of those characters where it's like, I never hesitate. And then you get a 5-minute internal monologue and you're like, okay, dude, if I don't think the brain actually fires fast enough for this entire thought process to be explained to us. There's a few times where they did do it a little bit more to my taste, which is they had him do the event and then afterwards he kind of reflected on it to explain to the reader kind of what was going on. And I preferred those moments, but I understand you can't do all of that. You have to mix it up a little bit. That being said, I am giving this book a 3 out of 5. I enjoyed it. It was not the peak of literature, but it was a fun read, and I have read a few other things by Jonathan Maybury. However, I don't know that I'd pick him up again. I do still love zombie apocalypse books, or in this case, the threat of zombie apocalypse. And the way this male character was written and the way they described female characters, if this is typical of his work, I don't know that I would pick it up again, because while the story itself read like an action movie, there was like some casual dude bro stuff in there. I wouldn't even necessarily say misogyny, just casual dude bro stuff in there that just doesn't appeal to me on a large scale. With that, I guess that's all the books. Thanks again. I hope you guys aren't too bored and you've tuned in. I'm sorry that this is a more lackluster vlog. We bought a house. I had a reading slump around the same time, so I was really struggling to finish the books I had been reading before I picked up these. And then I ended up picking them up late. But I will see you guys next month in my next video, in my vlog, which will probably have a bunch of moving shit in it. So I will see you in the next video.